Hello and welcome to another episode of the Sunday Surefire Podcast. I'm your host, the Commish. Joining me today is the co-host, Ethan Weaver.
Kamish, how we doing?
Doing pretty well, man. Doing pretty well. We're quickly kind of flying through the 2025 offseason here pretty quick. We're going to be coming up on training camp here in just a few weeks, which is fun. More fun, in my opinion, than mini camp, where they're not really doing a ton out there. But still some stuff flying around, news items coming up every week, which are fun to tick through. But on this episode here, we're going to be talking about players that are currently undervalued on the market here and on the Dynasty landscape. Specifically, we're going to be using the Fantasy Pros Superflex rankings. It's full PPR as well. If you want to follow along at home, you can feel free to pull those up and kind of go through this. We have 5 guys that we're going to touch on here that we think are maybe just good buys at this point in the offseason. And if camp gets going or early preseason gets going and these guys start making waves, it might be too late. Horse might be out of the barn to go ahead and acquire some of these guys. So we're talking to them. We're giving them to you right now here in late June. So definitely tune in here, see what we got cooking here, and see if you like some of these guys, Ethan. Anything to add on that before we get started, or do you want to just go ahead and give the people your first player?
I think we'll go ahead and get started right now. So the player I'll bring up first. Right now, he's ranked number 98 in the Fantasy Pros ranking, wide receiver 39, which I was a little surprised with. And the player I'll be talking about first is Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver, San Francisco 49ers. And I just think first year as a full-time starter, obviously he started slow last year, unfortunately, with the gunshot wound. He missed the first 6 games and then just obviously took some time getting back, missing all that time in the beginning of the season as a rookie. It's hard just to be inserted back once you're healthy. The team's already cooking. It's already been running for 6 weeks. It's going to take a little bit of time to get assimilated back in the offense. And I think towards the end of the season, you saw what Ricky Pearsall can do. In week 17 against Detroit, he had 8 receptions on 10 targets, 141 yards and a touchdown. And then he backed that up against Arizona in week 18, 6 receptions on 8 targets for 69 yards and a touchdown. So a very, very good way to end the year for Ricky Pearsall on a high note. You have Ayuk, who's coming off an ACL and MCL injury. I would be surprised if we see Ayuk before week 5. And even when Ayuk comes back, I mean, we've seen it over and over again. I don't think Ayuk is going to have a great year. It's going to take him time to get comfortable on that knee. You're probably not going to see a full go Ayuk until the 2026 season. And now that Debo's out, 81 vacated targets, his main competition for targets are going to be George Kittle and Juwan Jennings to start. And McCaffrey out of the backfield, obviously. But I think Pearsall can work his way to being one of Purdy's favorite targets sooner than later. Purdy was like I said, week 17, week 18 was throwing on the rock early and often. So I just like the offense in San Francisco. I trust Kyle Shanahan, former first-round pick a year ago out of the University of Florida. I think it's wheels up for Ricky Pearsall, and I think he's going to smash that wide receiver 39 ranking right now.
I think he's a good buy at the price at WR39 if you can get him there. It feels a little bit low to me. I have him as a top 36 wide receiver in my rankings. You can check those out on Dynasty League Football or DLF.com. It's a paid platform there, but a lot of good resources on there, a lot of great articles, a lot of great rankings as well. I have him as a top 36 wide receiver, like I said, personally. So he could definitely outperform that ranking, I think. I'm a little skeptical on his season-long upside with all those mouths to feed for 2025 specifically. But as we know in Dynasty, situations can change from year to year. Kittle's an aging player. Juwan Jennings will probably be out of there in a year or so. And you never know how Ayuk's going to come back from the knee, like you said. So long-term, I think he's a good buy. I would be okay buying him right now if you can get him for like a WR40 price for sure. I just don't know if he's necessarily going to be like that. If that takeoff season might be in 2026, if I'm being honest with you, but there's nothing wrong with buying a guy who's 25 years old right now. If you think he has long-term upside. So he's going to give you a floor this year too. I think so. He's a good call out on Pearsall. I like that. I like that one. Definitely some baked-in upside at its current price point. In terms of for me here, I'm going to go to a rookie to start. I'm going to go to Cam Scatterbo, 142 overall, RB38. And you'll see folks on this. Everyone is outside the top 30 or so at their position. Just kind of baking in a little bit of upside here. But Scatterbo definitely outside the top 36. And I know he's a rookie, and he's one of those guys where we always said, "Oh, we want him on day 2. We want him on day 2 of the draft to go there." And he fell to day 3, but he was the third selection in the 4th round. So I'm not going to hold that too much against him here. We know the Giants like him, and their current backfield situation consists of Devin Singletary and Tyrone Tracy. Tracy looked to be the best back in New York a season ago, but he's obviously had the struggle with the fumbling issues. Those are well documented. He's also a converted wide receiver, which I know that gets people excited because they think PPR and he's going to catch a ton of targets and all that stuff. And that could be the case. He's going to have a role as a passing down back in certain situations. But if you just look at prospect for prospect across the board in this backfield, I mean, I think Scatterbo was pretty clearly the best prospect in this room, and the analytics back that up. He was actually PFF's number 2 rated running back in the country last season behind Ashton Genty. So we know what he's capable of when given the workload. We saw it in spades at Arizona State a season ago, and I'm pretty high on this guy. I think he's going to be the best back in this room, and I think if it comes down to Brian Daboll just kind of coaching for his job this season, that he's going to have to roll with the best guy that he has for the job to show that he's worthy of sticking around in New York for another year or two, then I think he's going to give the job to Scatterbo. So I think there's plenty of upside here baked in at that RB 38 price point.
Definitely a lot of upside baked in. Scatterbo could easily become the full-time starter in New York. I mean, a couple concerns for me is, one, the New York Giants. What is their offense going to look like? I mean, it should take a step forward with Russell Wilson at the helm to at least start the season. And you have Malik Neighbors outside, but it is a crowded RB room for the moment. I mean, because I don't think Devin Singletary is just going to go away. He's shown to be a serviceable running back in the NFL for a few years now. And Scatterbo, if he can't take that, 3-down role, if Tyrone Tracy can hold on to the football and Tyrone Tracy ends up being the 2-minute, the 3rd down running back, what is Scatterbo's upside on what we're probably projecting a bottom tier offense this year? So I think for Scatterbo to return really good value this year, he needs to be able to work in on 3rd down. He needs to be able to show off that skill set that he has catching the ball, because I think he is one of the best pass catchers coming out of college this year. And I mean, we all know his contact balance is unbelievable, and I mean, he can be a workhorse. It just, how much is Tyrone Tracy, how much is Devin Singletary going to eat into his workload in an offense that isn't going to be able to, in my opinion, support two RB2s, two RB3s. So it'll be interesting to see how it plays out. So I'll
put the last point on that quickly here with Singletary. I'm not worried about Singletary eating into this workload. I mean, they for all intents and purposes, they really started to phase him out at the end of the season last year. From week 7 on, he only had one game where he played more than 37% of the snaps in favor of Tyrone Tracy, obviously taking a big step forward. You could argue it's an ugly 3-headed monster, but I think that the legs are going to get cut out of that pretty quickly. I'm not worried about Devin Singletary. I know other managers have said that in the past, who had running backs that are on the same team as Devin Singletary. He's kind of been the turd in the punch bowl and ruining fantasy upside for other guys in the past. I think those days are over. I'm up on Scatterbo. To answer your question, what's the upside? I think it's back end RB2 numbers, and you're getting him at an RB4 price point, even if it's him and Tracy splitting work in a bad offense. So that's all I got to say about Scatterbo here. Feel free to respond to any of that, or just keep going. And on anything else you got.
No, obviously, if you can get RB2 production for RB4 price tag, that's a steal. So, and these are the guys that we're kind of talking about today. We're talking about guys that are valued in Dynasty as wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4, RB3, RB4, that we think are going to be potentially WR2s, RB2s, weekly WR RB1 upside. So that brings me to my second player, and I want to talk about Tajay Spears, running back out of Tennessee. Right now, he's ranked as RB 41, overall 156. And right now in the Dynasty community, he's been essentially free in a couple of my leagues. I know I just got him in a at the end of my rookie draft for the 311 and 312, which is insanely cheap. And I'm going to take that shot all day, every day at that price. I think Tajay Spears is going to eat into Tony Pollard's workload this year. Tajay only played 50% of the snaps in 3 games last year, and he ended up as RB3, RB10, and RB12. So every time he was able to take the majority share of touches, he returned RB1 value. I think Tajay, I like Tajay coming out of Tulane. He's explosive. He's a great pass catcher. And I think you're going to see his workload increase this year because, Pollard played in weeks 15 and 16 when Tajay Spears was putting up those numbers. So I think it's going to be a 1-2 punch in Tennessee. I think Cam Ward is a massive upgrade to what they have been. I think that's going to be huge for that offense. I think their offense is going to be much more efficient. I think Tajay Spears is going to get more opportunity in the receiving game. And there are reports that Tony Pollard's workload may be managed this year. I know that was said last year, and obviously Tony Pollard was a workhorse. But, down the stretch, like I said, when given the opportunity, he was very good. He had games where he had 20 carries in week 17 for 95 yards. He had in week 15, he had 87 receiving yards. So he can be used on the ground through the air. And I think he will provide massive value at RB 41 prices. And like I said, I got him very, very, very cheap in one of my leagues. And I think he's available for cheap. And I think he's a guy on a contending team that can pay dividends in the near future.
I believe that he's available for cheap. I don't think many people are going to get him for 311 and 312, to be honest with you. I think that's a stupid price point, whoever did that to you.
It was during the rookie draft.
Well, of course it was. You wouldn't get that beforehand. There must have been some really good players falling to 311 and 312 in this rookie draft that I wasn't part of. But, that's a dumb price to give up for Spears. It's a great price to pay for Spears is what I'm trying to say.
The thing is, I don't think people are giving. Would you have given a second round pick in this year's draft class for Spears?
No.
So, what are you going to sell him for? What would you buy him for? 2 early thirds?
Sure, I would do that. Maybe like an early to mid third this year and a late third or a future third rather. Something like that. Or
should I say
but
that?
I look at 311 and 312 as basically essentially worthless. I've gone through this exercise and looked at the back half of third round draft picks and all the leagues that we played in for the last 5-6 years. It's all conveniently there on Sleeper for us. There's like one hit out of going on 30 or so picks over the years. Your hit right there is nothing, which is why I would much prefer Spears. And I think he's worth multiple thirds. I'd say that he's probably worth a future second round pick too, to the right manager. If it's a year or two out, potentially I can see that. But I agree with you though. Like everything that you said, I think he's a massive value here at RB 42 overall, or RB 42 154 overall on the list as of today. I think Pollard's best better suited to be in a committee that he then when he's had to be forced into a workhorse role where you saw that in Dallas where he was good in stretches, but his efficiency dropped significantly compared to years past when he was sharing that load with Zeke Elliott. So I think he needs a running mate in the backfield, and Spears is obviously the guy to do it. We'll see if Cam Ward is a massive upgrade in this offense. I think he's definitely going to be some form of an upgrade. If they can be average this year, this offense, it would be a big step for him. So I think that's what they're shooting for. And yeah, I think Spears is a good call out there at the price point too. So RB 42, definitely a lot of runway to outperform that metric.
I just one more comment on Spears. I just think he's going to do a lot of damage in the receiving game. As a rookie, he had 52 receptions on 70 targets. I think he can easily surpass that this year. So in PPR, full point PPR formats, I think he can be a value.
Agreed. Our guy, Aaron Downtown Brown, is not here tonight, but he was very adamant that we bring up a player that he really likes. It's not Will Fuller, for those who have been listening for several years at this point. He was the biggest Will Fuller fan out there. So it's not
what happened to that guy.
Good question. I I need a documentary on what happened to Will Fuller, because the guy was productive pretty much whenever he was on the field, minus some injuries and suspensions and stuff like that. He has the finger injury in Miami or something, and then was just never heard from ever again.
Weird. It's very odd. We need a 30 for 30 on that one.
Done before the age of 30, which is kind of crazy. But we won't hijack the show with the deep state conspiracy on Will Fuller. But Aaron's guy, maybe this is his new Will Fuller. It's Khalil Shakir, who is currently 105 overall on the list, WR 43. Fresh off an extension here. It's a 4-year, $53 million extension. If you actually look at the details of the contract, which you always have to do with these NFL contracts, it amounts to essentially a 2-year deal, which is fine. Shakir come off a 1,000-yard season, had 100 targets a year ago. So he's just banking in on Shakir being the go-to guy in the Buffalo Bills offense led by Josh Allen. So I think that's where his head's at least with putting Shakir on the list here, Ethan. What are your thoughts on him?
No, I agree. I think I'm starting to come around Shakir. I've never been a big Shakir guy, but it's hard not to see where the team is headed and the team investment. They just gave him, as you just alluded to, a pretty decent contract for a guy like Shakir. And I mean, you look at that wide receiver room, you look at that offense. I mean, who's his biggest competition? Keon Coleman. I'm not a big Keon Coleman fan either. I don't think Keon Coleman's going to kind of garner 150 targets. I think Shakir is going to be Josh Allen's go-to guy. I mean, Kincaid, he hasn't been the guy we thought he was going to be. You have the other tight end there, Dawson Knox. He comes in every now and then. But, I mean, Joshua Palmer, Keon Coleman, Khalil Shakir. Then you have Elijah Moore, Curtis Samuel, Joshua Palmer. I mean, I think Shakir can easily be the best one in that room, and I think he's already developed a very nice relationship with Josh Allen. He had 100 targets last year in 15 games. I think that's going to go up. I could easily see him getting 120, 130 plus targets. So in an offense as good as the Buffalo Bills, I'm willing to take the shot on Shakir at that price, especially, I mean, full point PPR. I think Shakir on any given week can eat, because I don't think Josh Allen really has a lot of go-to guys in that offense outside Khalil Shakir.
They don't. I mean, from a real football standpoint, I'd argue that Shakir isn't even really a go-to guy. Like we saw him in Kansas City last year in the AFC Championship game, where they were running the ball, and then KC just sells out to stop the run because they know they don't have the go-to guy, the Stephon Diggs anymore in that offense, who's going to continually beat man coverage. I don't even care what the deep metrics say. Like Kansas City just showed you with their actions in the playoffs that they could stop it. So, but we're not talking real football here. I mean, I think Shakir over the course of a 17-game season could be a legitimate fantasy producer here. And I couldn't believe he was that low on the list. Because like you said, off the top, I'm not a big Shakir guy either. I really haven't been at any point. But if that's the price for him where he's going to be going as a WR4 in full PPR, sign me up though. So I see why Aaron's on board. Yeah, I see why Aaron's on board with it. And Aaron says some crazy things on here, but I can get on board with this one.
No, not Aaron. Come on.
Yeah, never. Well, we got one more player here, folks, to break down here. Going back to the running back position, the last guy I gave you was RB38 on the list. I'm going to the next guy, the very next guy right behind him, RB39, Trey Benson, 143 overall. This one here is just another guy, actually, I wasn't the biggest fan of in the past, but and I was really concerned for him entering the 2025 offseason with a really good free agent, really good draft class looming at the position, hitting the league. And I thought for sure that they would sign someone to put some depth behind James Conner, but they just didn't do it. They didn't draft anybody. So the current backfield is James Conner, Trey Benson, then the likes of Amari DiMarcado and Michael Carter. Like I've seen the story before with those two guys. Like if you're rostering those guys, cut both of them. They both suck. Like get someone else
immediately.
Yeah, please, you can do better. Like I don't care if it's their 35-man like Debbie league. Just do better. But
an empty roster spot is worth more.
So,
flexibility, baby, flexibility.
I can talk your ear off about how good an empty roster spot looks to what I can do with that. Some real damage. Yeah. But going into last season, I like Benson's rookie year was a wash. Struggled with some injuries himself, missed a little bit of time. And then obviously like it was the one time in James Conner's career that he decided he was going to play damn near every game. He had never played a full season entering last season. And sure enough, he waits until week 17 to completely screw over fantasy managers that roll with them on championship weekend, where he only saw 4 touches and left with an injury. So like he was a big risk going into that game. Obviously, he played in the game, got his hit week 17 for the first time ever, and then week 18 didn't play. So he did miss time last year. Just waited to the worst time to do it. So at this point now, he's 30 years old. He's entering to, like I said, with the details of contracts. This amounts to the final season under contract there in Arizona. So I'm willing to bet that the end of the line for Connor is coming at some point this season. I don't think Benson's necessarily going to be the guy from week 1 or even in September, but as the season wears on, I can see Benson getting more and more run. And eventually, if Connor gets hurt or if Benson just outright outplays him at this stage in Connor's career, I could see him taking over this backfield. And all of a sudden, you got a guy who's a top 15 running back on your hands. I think the upside for Benson is that high if he can usurp Connor, whether it be for production purposes or for an injury to Connor. So what do you think? What do you think about that? I know Aaron loves Benson. Ethan, is this a clean sweep on our panel?
I do like Benson. He was raw coming out of Florida State. I think it took him some time to acclimate to the NFL game. And obviously, like you said, with some injuries and just James Conner being an absolute beast last year, things start off a little slow in his rookie year. But the fact that they didn't take anybody in the NFL draft, it's Benson and Conner. And Conner, this is not a sell show, but I think Conner, even if you're contending, is one of the biggest sells in Dynasty if you want to get any value whatsoever for him. Granted, if you're a contender, I can see you just, I'm going to ride him till the wheels fall off. But Conner hasn't proven to stay healthy, and all it takes is Benson to take that step, eating the James Conner's workload, and now you're getting a split, and James Conner's value week to week is diminishing while Benson's increasing. And I mean, Benson, he's younger, he's more explosive, he's a big back too. I mean, he can handle a workhorse role. So I think if Benson doesn't do it this year, he's a 0. But I think right now the move is try to sell Conner to teams, other teams that believe they are contending, and try to get some value, because if Conner goes out there and gets hurt or Benson takes off, like I think a lot of people are projecting. I mean, Benson, I think, is a very, very popular pick in terms of cheap upside running backs to take a stab at this year.
Yeah, it's got to happen in year 2. I mean, at that position, you can't wait, 3-4 years. By your second year in the league, you got to be able to figure it out, or at least show that you can have the potential to do something out there. You can't be like in your 3rd or 4th year and still figuring it out. So he was raw, like you said. So I'll give him a mulligan for 2024 as his rookie year. But the time is now for him, and at least to give us some sort of hope rostering him. But I think we're going to get it this year. So I'm glad to hear that we're all at least on board with it.
Yeah, the biggest hope, I think, is just the Arizona Cardinals. I told you in a way how they feel about their RB room. The fact that they didn't draft anybody, I think, is a massive, massive feather in Benson's cap. It was a great running back class. They could have easily drafted somebody in the 3rd, 4th round, but to me, that shows they trust Benson. So I think he's a great buy right now at his current price.
Buy. RB39, just buy him and thank us later.
100%.
But that's what we have for you, folks. A quick episode here, just running down 5 undervalued players on the Dynasty landscape. If you like what you heard, please hit that like button, hit that follow button as well. Subscribe to us everywhere you get your podcasts. And until next time, folks, peace.